The Lebanese Prime Minister has called for a state of emergency to declare following blasts in Beirut that killed over 100 people and more than 4,000 injured. The Colombian Supreme Court has ordered that former President Álvaro Uribe be placed under house arrest. The Ugandan Electoral Commission has banned campaign rallies ahead of 2021 general elections due to the risk posed by the novel coronavirus. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Laura Palmero. We begin in Lebanon, where Prime Minister Hassan Diab called for a state of emergency to be declared after explosions in Beirut killed more than 100 people and injured over 4,000. According to authorities, the blasts were caused by a fire in facilities in Beirut port area, specifically in a section that housed highly explosive materials. The governor of Beirut, Marwan Abrod, stated that the explosions affected half of the buildings in the Lebanese capital. The first blast struck the city's port shortly after 6 p.m. local time on Tuesday. Within minutes, reports emerged of another even more devastating explosion. Eyewitness footage of the blast showed extensive damage to the surrounding area as a massive cloud of dust and debris shot into the sky. Health Ministry Director General Fadi Sanan stressed that the number of casualties was a provisional toll. An investigation is underway to discover the exact cause of the fire. And this Wednesday was declared the National Day of Mourning in Lebanon. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Hassan Diab has stressed that those responsible for the massive blast in Beirut will be held to account.
It will not pass without accountability. Those responsible for this catastrophe will pay the price. This is a promise to the martyrs and the injured. This is a national commitment.
The International Labour Organization's Convention number 182 on the worst forms of child labour achieved universal ratification this Tuesday to become the first labour convention ratified by all ILO member states.
As of today, every country in the world, and so every child in the world, has legal protection against these forms of extreme abuse. It doesn't mean it's going to disappear overnight, but it does mean that the international community, all of it, has now equipped itself with instruments, possibilities, traction, ways in which we can move towards where we want to get to, which is a world free of child labour.
The newly elected Parliament of North Macedonia held its first session on Tuesday following the July 15th general elections.
My promises and the promises from the Social Party Union and its coalition are a serious guarantee for the next successful 4 years of governance. I believe there will be an increase in better living conditions for our citizens, and this is a serious guarantee besides the numbers of member parliaments to ensure stability for the next 4-year mandate. Our party for the coming period will focus on the talks for creating a parliamentary majority, which also means a new government, a government that will deal with real problems, with problems that preoccupy our citizens.
And President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, announced his recovery from COVID-19 this Tuesday while urging citizens to adopt a healthy lifestyle to reduce the risk of the novel coronavirus.
The pandemic shouts that people with weakened immune systems are in the risk zone. That's why everyone has to adopt a healthy lifestyle. Healthy food, fresh air, and sports are essential. This is the person who went through this telling you that. If you sit at home, you will always get sick.
He is a well-experienced politician. This is not the first election he has held. He is right that brotherly relations between the two countries are not subject of conjectural intent interest. They have a solid basement of historical ties and modern pragmatic cooperation. As for the Russian detaining in Belarus, whose blame hasn't been proved, and as for this theoretical performance that has been made around it, we will stand up for them, and might know as well.
French authorities have evacuated around 1,200 people on Tuesday in the coastal district of Martigues because of the violent fires registered in the last hours. Those evacuated, among them various tourists from their current campsites, were moved in boats and buses to gyms where they were to spend the night. Meanwhile, 1,200 firefighters, along with 6 Canada airplanes, have attempted to control the fires that had already ravaged on several hundred hectares of vegetation.
Distance, and then more and more it was getting closer and closer, and then we saw flames that were 50 meters away from the house. There were flames 20 meters high.
And we'll be right back after this short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The Colombian Supreme Court has ordered that former President Álvaro Uribe be placed under house arrest as a preventative measure for alleged bribery and procedural fraud. The ongoing case against Uribe is one of the most important in recent years in Colombia. More than 7,000 testimonies have been analyzed as part of the process. The ruling was notified immediately and came into effect this Tuesday. The Uribe case will be discussed again next Thursday, although the judges could call another extraordinary meeting. And just a few hours after the decision of the Supreme Court, Colombian President Iván Duque made public his position against the house arrest.
He has always answered all the calls of justice with courage, with his head held high. It hurts as a Colombian that many of those who have lacerated the country with barbarism defend themselves in freedom, or are even guaranteed never to go to prison, and that an exemplary public servant who has occupied the highest dignity of the state is not allowed to defend himself in freedom with the presumption of innocence. I am and I will always be a believer in the innocence and honorability of a man who by his example has earned a place in Colombia's history. As president, I call for reflection. I understand the role of institutions and the separation of powers. As a citizen and a believer in institutions, I hope that the judicial channels will operate and that there will be full guarantees so that an upright human being can fully and freely exercise his defense.
And Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro spoke out in relation to the house arrest of former Colombian President Álvaro Uribe, accused of procedural fraud and bribery.
El gobierno de Colombia está en manos de la mafia.
The government of Colombia is in the hands of the mafia. Today, the Supreme Court of Colombia ordered a house arrest rather than jail for former President Álvaro Uribe Vélez, alias El Matarife, precisely because of his direct links to paramilitarism. As in the case of Al Capone, he is being held for a so-called minor offense, but not the many years of drug trafficking, so many accusations, so much evidence against Álvaro Uribe Vélez, of having been the key element for Pablo Escobar Gaviria.
And Colombian Congressman for the Common Alternative Revolutionary Force Party, Carlos Antonio Lozada, also responded to the house arrest of Senator Álvaro Uribe.
The decision by the Supreme Court of Justice to order house arrest against Senator Álvaro Uribe strengthened the rule of law. We have lived through very difficult days, with undue pressure from the executive branch of the high courts. This voice of independence can only strengthen Colombian institutions.
Colombian analyst and specialist on peace issues Carlos Medina has stressed that the house arrest of former Colombian President Álvaro Uribe is not linked to the many serious criminal accusations leveled against him during the presidential term.
I believe that it must be taken into consideration because it has produced a number of reactions in our country, which exacerbate tensions and to some extent make things difficult. Due to the convergence of 3 sectors at this political and legal moment that Senator Álvaro Uribe is facing, one sector that mainly reacts in a violent way against the courts and is headed to a certain extent by President Iván Duque, who does not accept this decision by the Supreme Court.
The Bolivian Workers' Center, the country's chief trade union federation, announced on Tuesday that the protests will continue against the decision to postpone the general elections, which were scheduled to be held on September 6th. Demonstrators announced they will continue to block roads and highways nationwide while occupying the main streets in the cities of La Paz, Oruro, and Cochabamba. A group of protesters gathered in front of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal building this Tuesday, announcing a hunger strike to demand respect for the Bolivian constitution and for the vote to take place in the previously agreed date. The Electoral Tribunal announced last week that the general elections will be held in October, marking the fourth time to vote has been postponed following the coup against former President Evo Morales last year. In Chile, the recent attacks by armed civilian groups on members of the Mapuche community have sparked condemnation. The public prosecutor's office has announced it is investigating the events, but nobody has been detained for the violent acts so far.
There are almost 3,000 kilometers between the city of Arica in northern Chile and the town of Puerto Saavedra in the extreme south. However, in both places, as well as throughout the national territory, there were widespread demonstrations to protest racist acts against the Mapuche people. The images of people screaming and being lynched under the iron tolerance of the National Police Force have been seen all over the world. That's why several members of parliament are taking actions to find out who is responsible.
We are seeing groups, civilian bands that publicly call to evict and lynch our brothers.
The story started when members of the Mapuche community occupied 5 municipalities to bring the national attention to prisoners doing a hunger strike. The local authorities refused to dismantle the protest, but civilian groups organized themselves and violently attacked the peaceful demonstrators. All of this right after the Interior Minister Victor Perez visited the area.
It's enough. How many raise the hands to go here at 12? We met at 12 in the square. You have to go with sticks, with whatever you need to defend yourself. But we have to recover the municipality today.
And that's how things happened. The National Police Force was there, but they did nothing to prevent the violent attacks, and they saw how a ceremonial Mapuche center located in Victoria Square was set on fire.
The National Police Force did not act as expected, which encouraged the violent groups that honestly are just criminal groups. They committed a hate crime, because what they said and what we saw was the idea that the one that doesn't attack is Mapuche.
After the attacks, the police detained tens of people from Curacautín, Traigen, Ercilla, and Culipuli, but none of them were part of the violent groups. They were all Mapuches.
The state of Chile has not fulfilled its duty to guarantee peace, respecting human rights, and condemning any expression of racism.
The criticism comes from all sectors: the College of Psychologists, anthropologists, and journalists. The Ombudsman's office made an appeal against the Ministry of Interior and the Senate in order to call the attention of international and national organizations on this matter.
To the Chilean people, please don't ignore us. Remember that this land where you are living is not yours. This land belongs to the Mapuche people.
However, the Chilean state does not even acknowledge in the constitution the existence of this Aboriginal community that has lived in these lands for centuries.
Paola Braknik, Telesur. And we have more stories coming up after this final break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The Ugandan Electoral Commission has banned political rallies ahead of 2021 general elections while offering the choice of campaigning on social media, television and radio. Electoral Commission chairperson Justice Simon Bikiakama noted that the decision aims to limit the spread of the novel coronavirus, highlighting a risk assessment issued by health authorities. The Commission has also released a new roadmap on electoral activities while setting the start of the nomination process for presidential candidates for November. Meanwhile, health authorities have reported over 1,200 COVID-19 cases and 5 fatalities. China's foreign ministry has described as a hostile action the decision of Trump's administration to take away the option to extend the visa to Chinese journalists, forcing them to leave the country.
We have said many times that the cause and responsibility for the current situation lies with the U.S. The U.S. should immediately correct its mistake and stop its political oppression of Chinese media and journalists. If the U.S. insists on going its own way and continuing such wrongdoings, China will have to make necessary and legitimate responses to safeguard its legitimate rights and interests.
Tanzania's main opposition party this Tuesday nominated former Member of Parliament Tundu Lissu as its presidential candidate to contest the general elections to be held in October this year. Tundu Lissu returned to Tanzania from exile in late July, announcing that he was planning to fight for the presidency. The opposition figure has openly criticized current government John Magufuli, saying his response to the novel coronavirus pandemic is as a national embarrassment. Lissu was serving as a member of parliament when he suffered an assassination attempt in September 2017 in the capital, Dodoma. Shot 16 times, he fled the country and underwent more than 20 operations while receiving treatment in Belgium. The novel coronavirus pandemic has cost nearly $45 million in losses to Rwanda's tourism sector. Meanwhile, an innovative alternative has been developed to offer virtual tours of Rwanda's capital, Kigali.
It's unfortunate that the pandemic hit the industry in general, but for me as a virtual tour content creator, it was actually an opportunity. So people were visiting the places, using the content I've created, and also they got to understand the importance and the advantage the virtual tours can bring to the industry as a whole.
So the virtual tourism would create need for the people because there are so many I would say, tourism activities for which people don't know. So the best way to do it is to start virtual. You expose those packages to the potential tourists, and then after looking at them, seeing them, they will be much interested. Then the virtual tourism will be a marketing tool for the tourism.
This will never replace the traditional tourism because nothing will really replace the fact that people can be at places, at location, and see the things with their own eyes. So this is more a different layer of information which can actually push people, give them a sense of a glimpse of what they would expect if they visited the place physically.
Kenya health authorities reported 605 new COVID-19 cases on Tuesday, taking the total number to over 23,000. The Cabinet Administrative Secretary for Health, Rashid Aman, noted that 582 of new COVID-19 cases were Kenyans and 27 were foreigners. Meanwhile, 587 patients were discharged from health facilities in the last 24 hours, bringing the total number of recoveries to over 9,000. The COVID-19 death toll now stands at 388. And the key third mainland bridge in the Nigerian city of Lagos is partially closed for renovations for a 6-month period, worsening traffic in the country's economic capital. The third mainland is Africa's second largest bridge, stretching 12 kilometers along Lagos Lagoon to link Lagos Island, the economic heart of the city, with the mainland where most people live. Its partial closure has had a serious impact on the economy, and the economy is saying that the productivity loss due to traffic congestions come to as much as $383 million US.
They are charging us because of the inconvenience of the closure of the bridge and because of the traffic. because the drivers feel they'll be in traffic for a while, longer than the usual time they're supposed to be in traffic, or they're supposed to apply that route.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Laura Palmero. Thank you for watching.